Hi, this is Miss Hageman, and today we're going to read the very last part of Keena Ford and the Field Trip Mix-Up. So get nice and comfy, take a big breath in, and a big breath out. Now, a lot of times in fiction books like this one, there's actually lessons that we can learn from the experiences that the characters have or overall the story that the author writes. So as we're reading this last part of Keena Ford today, think about if there's any lessons you can learn from this story. Here we go. By the time we got back to the office cafeteria, the class was already eating lunch. When they saw me, they all got very quiet, except for Addie. Addie said, "I told you she did not go to jail," and she was looking at Tiffany when she said it. Miss Campbell handed my lunch tray to me and told me to take a seat. There was only one empty seat at the table. And guess where it was? It was right next to Tiffany Harris. "I'm not hungry," I told Miss Campbell. Miss Campbell looked at me. She looked at me like maybe she was a little bit tired. She also looked like she really wanted me to sit down. So I did. Tiffany raised her hand. "Yes, Tiffany," Miss Campbell said. "May I please move?" she asked. "I am afraid Keena is going to push me out of my chair since she knocked over Representative Thomas." When Tiffany said that, I felt very mad. Tiffany knew that I did not mean to knock over Rep. Thomas. "Tiffany, don't be silly," said Miss Campbell. "Why are you being so mean to Keena?" said Linny. "She did not do anything to you." "I am not being mean," Tiffany said. "Yes, you are," Royanne told her. "You laughed at Keena's hair, and that was not nice." "Thank you, Delegate Jones," I said. I knew Royanne would be a good delegate if she could stand up to a meanie like Tiffany. "Her hair had string in it. It looked funny," Tiffany said. Then Linny started to say that she thought Tiffany looked like something. I think she was going to say a bad name. But when she said, "I think you look like," I said, "Shh." I did not want Linny to get in trouble. Just then, Miss Campbell said it was time to go. She started calling people to line up. When she called me, she said, "Keena, I would like for you to walk with me. Also, you will sit beside me on the bus." When we got on the bus, I sat in the second seat beside Miss Campbell. I knew I had to say sorry for 3 very bad things I had done. 1, I had lied to Miss Campbell about why I had to wear my scarf. 2, I had not followed directions when she told the class to be careful. 3, I made Rep. Thomas fall down. I did not know where to start, so I was quiet for a long time. Miss Campbell started talking first. She said, "Keena, I know you did not mean to hurt Representative Thomas, but I told you to be very careful on the stairs, and you did not follow directions. I will have to talk to your parents and to the principal about what happened. And I think you will have to write an apology to Representative Thomas. Don't you?" "Yes," I said. Then I told Miss Campbell that I was sorry I did not behave, and I stayed very quiet for the rest of the bus ride. When we got back to school, it was time to go home. Dad was there to pick me up. Miss Campbell had to talk to him about what happened at the Capitol. Dad did not look too happy. When we got in the car, I told him the same apology I told Miss Campbell. Then I told him about the election and the yarn braid and the scarf. We got to the middle school to pick up Brian. Brian got in the car. Then he said, "What happened to you, yarnhead?" "Keena had a little scissors trouble," Dad told him. "Wow," Brian said. Then he said, "How was your field trip?" I looked at Dad. He was not making any kind of face at all. He was just looking straight ahead, and his mouth was in a straight line. "It was okay," I said. I asked Dad to turn on the radio before Brian could ask me any more questions. The guy on the radio was talking about Congress. I actually knew what they were talking about on I Know That's radio. I tried to pay attention. They were saying some stuff about taxes. I didn't know what they were talking about. I was just listening for the radio guy to say Congress again. Then I would say, "I know that's right." Then I heard the radio guy say something else about Congress. He said, visitors to the Capitol got a bit of a scare today when a member of the House of Representatives toppled down a flight of stairs. It seems that Palmer Thomas of Maryland was tripped by an elementary school student on a tour. Luckily, no one was hurt. Oh my gosh, Brian said. Keena, did you see that happen? I was very quiet. Brian was quiet too. Then he said, uh-oh. Yeah, I said. Nuh-uh, Brian said, almost in a whisper. It was an accident, I said. What happened? Brian kind of shouted a little bit. He was not whispering now. Well, I said. Well, I got very mad because I wanted to be at the end of the line. And right when I heard myself say that to Brian, I knew it sounded really, really dumb. Are you kidding? Brian said. Was there a pot of gold at the end of the line? No, I said. Wait till Mom hears about this, Brian said. I'm sure your mother will understand that Keena has learned from her mistake, Dad said. What did you learn, Keena? I learned to stay in line where I am supposed to, I said. And I learned that Tiffany Harris and I will never, ever get along. I told Brian about how mean Tiffany was to me. But Tiffany didn't make you run up the stairs, Brian pointed out. I know, I said. Poor Tiffany, Dad said. Huh? I said, what do you mean? She must be a very unhappy person, Dad said to me. No one who is very happy would have to spend so much time making other people feel bad. I thought about that for a minute. So, am I supposed to let her be mean to me? I asked Dad. No, he said, but I'll bet she stops bothering you if you ignore her. Does she say mean things to Linny too? No, I said, because Linny doesn't care what Tiffany says. See, Dad said. I thought about my list of rhyming words for student council. I decided that whenever Tiffany was mean to me, I would imagine that I had a poster that said, "You are being ignored by Keena Ford." I would have to tell Eric about that one. 8:00 p.m. I am in my room at Dad's house. During dinner, I told Dad and Brian all of the cool things Jean had told us about on the tour. I told them about going underground in the statue room and the painting on the ceiling. I decided that maybe someday I could go back to the Capitol after all. I would just stay far away from that staircase. After dinner, I wrote my apology letter to Rep. Thomas. I used Brian's thesaurus so I could make my letter sound very smart. I wrote, "Beloved Rep. Thomas, I am exceedingly remorseful for colliding with you on the stairs and hurling you to the earth. I yearn for you to pardon me for my blunder. I offer assurance that I will demonstrate more prudence in the subsequent era. Adoringly, Keena Ford." I read my letter to Dad and Brian. Brian said, "That sounds really weird, Keena." And Dad said, "This thesaurus is more of a tool to remind you of words you already know." Then he said I had a good vocabulary and that Rep. Thomas would appreciate whatever I had to say, even if it didn't sound so fancy. So I rewrote my letter like this. "Dear Rep. Thomas, I am sorry that I knocked you down the stairs. I hope you can forgive me. I promise that I will never, ever be unsafe again for the rest of my life. And I will never tell anyone that you have fake hair like a tiny carpet. Love, Keena Ford." I read my new letter to Dad. He made a little choking sound when I got to the part about the fake hair, but then he said my new letter sounded much more natural. Next, I'm going to write a letter to Miss Campbell. But before I do that, I'm going to add George Washington to the cover of my journal with the clouds, rainbows, and angels. Maybe his picture will remind me of the sculpture of his head, and that will remind me of falling down the stairs in the Capitol. And maybe that will remind me to follow directions whenever I look at my journal. I will probably have to look at my journal a lot. And that's the end of Keena Ford and the Field Trip Mix-Up. I hope you've enjoyed reading this book with me over these last few days. And now's a good time to talk with someone about what lessons we can learn from this book about Keena Ford. See you tomorrow.